Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live on the evolving commercial technology landscape in life sciences. This is the third in this series of LinkedIn Live, so welcome again. We'll begin shortly. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to settle in. In the meantime, do let us know where you're dialing in from. And while people do that, right, it seems like every time we do this LinkedIn Live, it's cricket season. I think last time it was the ODI World Cup. This time it's IPL. So I think while we wait for people to join, let's talk about predictions for this IPL winner, right? So Rohit, I know you follow cricket, so I let Durga think about what she wants to say. Rohit, why don't you go ahead?
So I think everyone would agree that the top of the table might already be set with the Rajasthan Royals, Kolkata Knight Riders, and the Sunrisers Hyderabad out there taking, bringing full on brute force. So I think these three are already set, and there are a lot of takers for the fourth spot. So the second half of the league stage would be interesting. Who takes the fourth spot here? So will it be the old wily CSK or the emerging DC, or as we have seen last 2 seasons, LSG always makes the cut but then ends up losing the qualifiers. So yeah, interesting times. But I say this with a pinch of salt. Big Virat Kohli fan, and I take the RCB jokes every day. So yeah.
Durga, any predictions from you?
Oh shoot, I was about to say something about RCB, but I think that's a consistent thing. But maybe good luck next time for that team.
Yeah. And yeah, I think Rajasthan Royals and Sunrisers are playing exciting cricket, right? So it would be good to see one of them win it again. I think we're at the 2 minute mark, right? I think we can begin, right? So once again, welcome everyone to this LinkedIn Live on the emerging or the evolving commercial technology landscape in life sciences. As I mentioned, this is the third in the series of LinkedIn Live. So look forward to interacting with all of you again. My name is Chunky Satija. I'm a vice president at Everest Group, and I'm based out of Gurgaon near New Delhi. And I'm joined by two of our life sciences leaders. Durga, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Chunky. So I'm hoping we are joined by some of our usual audience and some new audience. So I'm Durga. I'm a practice director with the Life Sciences Tech and Technology Services team, and I closely work with Rohit on the commercial technology side of the house.
And Rohit, please introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, Rohit, practice director with the firm, co-lead the life sciences, technology and technology services practice with Durga and Chunky. Yeah, looking forward to this exciting couple of topics that we have lined up for today. Yeah, excited for today.
Great, thank you both of you. And all three of us are based in Gurgaon, so would be good to hear again where people are dialing in from. So let us know in the chat where you're dialing in from. So I mentioned that this is the third in this series. Last time, I think towards the end of 2023, when we had the second iteration of this LinkedIn Live, we talked about future-ready commercial models and the five main tenets of those commercial models. We also talked about how the overall commercial tech stack shouldn't just be the CRM; it should be CRM, and on top of that, additional engagement functionalities. And we also talked about who are some of the new and emerging players who are providing those functionalities because we didn't see a lot of those functionalities coming from the large incumbents. And then we talked about Veeva-Salesforce split and what implications that has for the industry. What we're going to do in this LinkedIn Live is we are going to talk about the latest buyer sentiment on the commercial tech stack, how they are thinking about it. We will also talk about some of the engagement functionalities and how are pharma organizations trying to prioritize. And we'll obviously talk about Gen AI because I think any LinkedIn Live, you have to talk about Gen AI. But before we talk about any of those, let's start with the latest announcement from a few weeks back on IQVIA and Salesforce joining hands. This was something which was had long been rumored. I think ever since Viva and Salesforce announced that they are parting ways, it's finally confirmed. So maybe let's start from here, right? And Rohit, would be good if I know you're planning to write a blog on it. Would be good if you can talk about what does what does that mean, right? So we know that they're coming together, but if you can shed more light on what this partnership is.
Sure, Chunky. So I think everyone in this space, it for some it would have come as a surprise, but like you mentioned, the ones following this closely, this is not that big a surprise. But I'll quickly unpack what it holds. This announcement, IQVIA Salesforce joining hands. So I look at it like two major points, rather two key takeaways and one interesting observation. So first key takeaway is that that Salesforce, it will be licensing the entire IQVIA OCE suite to accelerate the development of its own life sciences focused platform, which right now it is calling as Salesforce Life Sciences Cloud. Now, to develop this, both IQVIA and Salesforce, they will be sharing technology, they will be sharing talent, and together they will be taking this solution to the market. So that is like pretty basic stuff. Second is that as with the Viva Salesforce split, there is a cooling off period in this new partnership as well. The complete transition from OCE environment to the new Salesforce environment will happen by 2029. And in this period, IQVIA will continue to support and offer services to the existing OCE customers. And I think everyone would know that IQVIA does not provide only OCE suite of services or products. So it has a whole lot of other accelerators, other products, other tools. So it will continue to develop those, it will continue to market those, and it will continue to sell those to the life sciences clients while all of this disruption is happening. So those are the two key takeaways. Now, the very interesting observation, what we have seen, and if you read between the lines, is that neither Salesforce nor IQVIA is calling the new platform as the life sciences CRM. Instead, they are calling it as an end-to-end customer engagement platform. This is very much in line with how we also see the market dynamics evolving. CRM from I think 2 to 2.5 years from now till now, we have been calling it just as a system of records and or the base layer of the entire engagement platform. So the next generation customer engagement, it will be defined by what sits on top of this CRM layer. So it was great to see that the incumbents, while they are joining hands, they are moving beyond the traditional definition of CRM and calling it an end-to-end customer engagement platform. So those were my takeaways from this announcement. Yeah.
That's interesting, Rohit, and I think that is the way to go, right? Because uh, for for a long time the industry has been siloed, and we've already seen how different functions within the industry are trying to move from disparate applications to single platform. Eventually, you would want all of not just commercial and R&D, but of your all of your life sciences in one platform. So, would be interested to see how that plays out. And if from a Salesforce perspective, it's not unexpected because they've done something similar on the healthcare side with their health cloud. So, would be interesting to see again how what the adoption is, what the product or what the platform is like. Durga, before I come to you, right, one thing which wanted to mention for our audience is we want this to be a very interactive session. So if you have an opinion, if you have a question, just mention in the chat. We'll try to pick up as many of those comments as possible. So Durga, question for you, right? What is your take on this partnership between Salesforce and IQVIA?
So I think it's too early to give out any sort of verdict, Chunky. It's just the news is just 2 weeks old, but here are my initial reactions. Right, I definitely think it's a good move from Salesforce to help their clients understand what are their plans. And again, that's because of few reasons. One, I think clients had, or rather they knew what they can expect from Viva, right, in the coming few years. They had that visibility into what kind of functionalities can they expect. That was not the case with Salesforce until a few weeks back, but now they have that visibility to, so to some extent some of the questions that they had were answered. So I think it was time that Salesforce talked about what are its plans for the life sciences cloud. So I think that's definitely cleared out a lot of air. Secondly, if you look at the life sciences CRM market a few years ago, when we were just launched the life sciences CRM platform, it was truly lopsided, right, in terms of who's going to win the market there, because there was not a lot of competition when it first made that announcement. But now I think, we've talked about it in the last two LinkedIn lives as well, and Rohit also talked about it around how the expectations of enterprises are evolving around the CRM. They don't just want a traditional CRM, right? They want more customer engagement functionalities. Now, with these new expectations, I think the market tonality in a way has been reset. And Chunky, in your words, right, you say that life science enterprises don't make decisions around CRM every day. Like, these are once in a decade decisions. So definitely, I think it's opportunity for everyone. It's not as lopsided as it was earlier. And there's no first movers advantage, because I believe the market is in a lot of ways been reset. And lastly, from all practical purposes, if you think about building everything in house, there's going to be like a significant time associated with it. Right now, given the time sensitive nature of this opportunity and the nature of this demand that we are seeing, I believe, and also that Salesforce's history of a very partner-led model, it's all adding up, right? So I believe from a very early thoughts perspective, and when I first looked at that announcement, it all was adding up. But I believe it's we'll have to still see how things evolve, because there's a time frame associated to this, and as the industry that we are, we would like to take our sweet time and taking these decisions. We are not the ones that jump into decisions. So I'm sure there's going to be a due diligence around this.
Yeah, I think that's true. Right? And I think in the last LinkedIn Live, we talked about how this is going to be a long movie. So get your popcorns out. We've seen our first plot twist, right? Rohit, interested in your perspectives as well on this.
So quick, completely on board with what Durga mentioned, right? So I'll just continue the trail from there. She mentioned that a lot of things sort of adding up. We all know how Salesforce, it was bound by non-compete clause, and they had literally no presence in biopharma segment. While they were, big in say medtech, consumer segments, but biopharma, which is the biggest chunk in the life sciences CRM or customer engagement space, they have no presence there. And all us analysts also, we were a little skeptical, while they are separating, how will Salesforce disrupt the biggest chunk? So I think this was the most disruptive way to do it. But now that they've already done it, so let's, like you said, grabbing more popcorns here. And I'll quickly summarize this by saying that, earlier, say 3 months back, we were looking at it like a war on four fronts: Viva, IQVIA, Salesforce. And, every time we miss out the fourth front, which is the niche and emerging life sciences focused technology platforms which are upcoming. I think now it has been reduced and it has rather become more intense with only three fronts there: IQVIA, Salesforce having each other's backs, Viva, and the whole army of the niche emerging platforms.
Very well summarized, Rohit. Durga, I know that you were recently at the Reuters Pharma USA conference, right? So while I think the announcement of Salesforce and IQVIA coming together happened after that, I think there were already rumors of that this might be on the cards. I'm just curious if there was something that you picked up on this in your conversation in Reuters. So yeah, any perspectives would be interesting.
So, firstly, I think I love the way Rohit mentioned that it's an army of niche providers, right? Very nicely put. And Reuters was a great place to have these discussions because it was a very close knit conference, so very warm conversations with familiar faces. So it was a lot of interesting topics were getting discussed, and of course, the Viva Salesforce parting ways and what are Salesforce plans going to look like. That was one of the hot topics. So I'm sure now that everyone would be happy to see that announcement. Like I mentioned, it was very similar, right, Chinky? I think the biggest question was around the lack of visibility back then, which is now addressed. So, in a nutshell, I would just say that it was largely similar, no surprises. Mostly the visibility into the plans were truly unveiled.
And since we are talking about Reuters, what were, other than Viva, IQVIA, Salesforce, what were some of your other takeaways from that conference?
Uh, Slightly contrasting views, but with an underlying statement, I would say. So, we've been talking about how CRM technology is evolving, how there's a need for customer engagement platforms, right? So, here's what I've heard from enterprises. There were one cohort which were talking a lot more forward looking, right? When I say forward looking, hey, what's that new or the future commercial technology stack going to look like? What kind of customer engagement functionalities should we be thinking about? Should we be adding on top of our existing CRMs? Because there's no one true customer end-to-end customer engagement platform provider out there as of today. So there were a lot of questions around, we are actively thinking about it. What should this look like? And what should that architecture look like, right? So a lot of questions around very forward looking point of view on how things should be looking like maybe 4 to 5 years from now. And there's this other cohort which was taking a totally grounds up approach. The intent was, or rather, the belief was that a significant amount of investment has already been made from a tech standpoint, and now they have the time to step back and think about this future stack. So they truly want to get the fundamentals right. And when we are talking about fundamentals, I think the biggest question was about data management. So everyone's objective, like it's all about personalized customer experience, right? So for that to truly happen, enterprises do realize that they need to fix their data management. So a lot of conversation around master data management, building a true view of customer. And when they say true view, they totally realize the importance of bringing together digital channels with the in-person channels, all of that data in one place to truly build that personalized customer journeys for their clients. So while these two views might look slightly contrasting, the underlying objective was rather same. It's really about evolving the CRMs with more new age functionalities to truly achieve customer experience, right? The objective is so simple, but I think the path towards that objective is not so simple. So everyone is taking a different approach basis where they are in their internal tech journey. An organization that is probably far mature in terms of its digital transformation journey is thinking about what should my future stack look like. Organizations which are still maybe scrambling with some of their fundamental issues around their tech landscape are wanting to go back and do undergo a modernization journey. So that's the two-sided view that I really heard.
Thanks, Durga. Given that I think we are around 20 minutes, close to 20 minutes in, would be good to just look at some of the comments that we are getting. So I think London is very vocal today. So yeah, if there are others, let us know where you're dialing in from. There are a couple of questions from Aranya Dev. So the first one is, with these partnerships, there's a hint of product consolidation as well, joining up separate products dedicated as part of customer engagement platforms to realize the next gen CRM. Yeah, I would say I agree to most of it. I think there is consolidation, and I think some of it was to be expected, right? If you think about the life sciences commercial tech market, it was a very saturated market. Viva had around 85% market share. Uh, it's now that we have had a major event with Viva Salesforce parting ways, we, I think, suspected that there would be some sort of consolidation. And we're seeing consolidation, I think, not just like from the perspective of Viva and Salesforce, but also others as well, right? We saw Ectana and Intact coming together. So there's, I think, definitely consolidation, because if you think about some of the niche players, a lot of them are offering niche capabilities, where and where they either used to partner with some of the others, or I think just because they're different niche capabilities people are offering, there's obviously room for consolidation. I think the part where I have a slightly different opinion on is, again, I think if you look at it from a Salesforce and IQVIA perspective, uh, I see this as less about two products coming together, because my sense is that on the ground up, I think we'll still have to wait for these details to come out in the public domain. But I think based on some of the interactions that I have, I feel that it would be more grounds up. There would definitely be a lot of some capabilities that they might be using from OCE. But I think I see this as less of products coming together versus, I think, different sets of capabilities coming together to create, from Salesforce and IQVIA's perspective, create that life sciences cloud for pharma organizations. Durga or Rohit, is there anything additional that you would want to add?
So I think another example would probably be the Octana Tact AI coming together as well. That's also a great example of us seeing partnerships in this landscape. So, like Chunky, you mentioned, right? It's not about products to coming together. I think it's more about an ecosystem play here, because not everyone, not one person can bring everything to the table. So how do you make the right matches in the ecosystem and serve the true demand that's out there?
There's one more question from Aranya. How do you see the market for life sciences customer engagement platforms? From analyst lens, do you see bigger players dominating the space? Or do you see niche players like Exevo gaining momentum, considering pharma companies are becoming increasingly price sensitive? So maybe I can start, right? As of today, it does look like the larger players are the ones who would dominate the market. But as I said, right, it's still a long road. There can be more surprises. I think on the price sensitivity part, this is definitely something that is coming up. And I know a lot of, like, even Microsoft and players like Exevo and others who are on the Microsoft stack. I think this is a part of their value proposition. This is the message they are taking to market. I think it still remains to be seen whether that message resonates, or the message would resonate, but would they, for example, move to a Microsoft stack? I think that is something we are yet to see. But yeah, I do think that this will be an important component of their value proposition. But as I said, right, at this point in time, it does look like the bigger players are the ones who would probably end up grabbing the lion's share, right? But that is as of today, right? And the market is very dynamic. You ha- so Vault CRM would be new, Salesforce and IQVIA's Life Sciences Cloud would be new, right? So there's still a lot of uncertainty, but that is how at least I see it as of today. Okay. Anything else to add, Durga, Rohit? Otherwise, I think there's one more comment.
So I'll
Okay,
just
so
add to that pointer around, like you mentioned that the bigger players, we still feel that, they'll be dominant. So what we see from enterprise side is that they'll still want to stick with one of the incumbents and maybe experiment with the upcoming, next gen platforms in certain pockets. And as and how they taste success there, that will define how they scale those platforms across different functions, maybe across enterprises. But for now, enterprises, at least the larger ones, they want to, stick with one of the incumbents.
yeah, I think that is correct, right? I think there's good amount of proof points that some of these emerging players have from markets like China, from functions like market access, medical affairs. So I think there's good bit of proof points. I think the question is, uh, can they do it for larger markets like North America, Europe, for large functions like sales and marketing? So I think that's the important question, right? And I think the kind of industry that pharma is, if you get one client, getting the second one becomes easier, right? Because everyone wants the confidence that someone else my size has taken that decision. So uh, I think getting that first large customer for sales and for marketing for large markets like North America and Europe, I think that to a large extent that will determine success of some of these niche players. There's one question on Gen AI. So this is something that we'll park for now because we are going to talk about Gen AI in a few minutes. There's a question from Shripad Deshmukh. Why is Viva not allowing its implementation partner to help them deploy Vault CRM for the first year? How will it impact partners' business? Again, my sense is their first few deployments, they want to, I mean, they would want to go them right. So probably that is why they might be doing it from their own professional services arm. But let me check with Durga and Rohit if there's any additional perspective that they have.
So I don't see this impacting the partner's business as such because we've seen that historically Viva Services business is strong for on the part for the service providers, right? So I would definitely say that it shouldn't have a significant impact on the partner's business. It's a big step for Viva. All eyes are on them, so they definitely wouldn't want things going wrong. So I'm sure there's a lot more involvement from their end in terms of getting their first example right. Otherwise, I mean, we all know that a lot of fingers are just waiting to be pointed their way.
Yeah, so I think to summarize, right, I think the initial few deployments, they might be more hands-on, might use their own professional services. But I think in the long term, I don't see this impacting service providers. I think this is a win-win for service providers because irrespective of whatever decision and pharma company makes, they would need a service provider to work with them because neither Viva nor Salesforce nor any of the emerging players would have the size and the capacity from a or of system integration capability. So they'll definitely need their partners. Uh, so yeah, I see this more as a short-term trend. There's one more question from Mini Nair. In terms of geographical reach and market dominance, how does the partnership between Salesforce and IQVIA compare to Viva, particularly in key regions such as North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific? Any perspectives on that, Durga or Rohit?
I think this is something that we probably have to wait and watch to see if there is any region specific nuance to this. I believe the approach is global in nature, so wouldn't expect it to be very different between different regions.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts, but not a lot of detailed insight to it. So maybe this is something that we'll investigate as a part of our research. Okay, I think those were all the questions that we had so far. So, Durga, you mentioned that one of the things that struck you from your interactions at Reuters were how organizations were thinking about their commercial tech stack, right? And I think in the past LinkedIn Live, we've talked about how that next gen or future ready commercial tech stack should have not just a CRM, which almost all pharma companies have now, but also a lot of engagement functionalities. Uh, Rohit, would be good if you can talk about again what some of those functionalities are.
Sure. So great point there, Durga, how, market is also evolving, how different sets of enterprises have different expectations basing their basis their journey and tech maturity. So I'll quickly do a refresher for the audience on how we envision a next gen customer engagement platform in life sciences. So we look at three distinct layers in this overall platform. First layer is the engagement layer, and as the name suggests, this forms the core of this platform. Under this, we assess platform capabilities which enable hyper personalized customer engagements. So to do this, we primarily look at three things. First, how is the engagement content being managed? Second is how are the engagement channels being optimized? And third is how are the commercial function personnel getting trained? How are they getting their hands on these experience focused tools and technologies? And these three distinct modules, they include the themes around analytics, insights, competitor intelligence, recommendations across all submodules as well. Second layer is the cognitive layer or the intelligence layer. This is where we are analyzing the intelligence part of the platform. So here we check that, does the platform provide next best actions at every step? Does it have capabilities like low code or no code functionalities for easier usage? Does it provide embedded conversational intelligence, so on and so forth? And last is the functional layer. This is where we are checking the flexibility of the platform. Here we check, does it provide modules which are specific and targeted towards different sub-functions? So does it have module which is catering only to sales? Does it have modules for marketing, medical affairs, market access, to check how well spread the platform is? So net, this is the entire scope with which we play and assess the different providers in the market.
In Rohit, I know that you recently led a peak matrix assessment on life sciences customer engagement platforms, where you, I think, spoke to more than 30 odd buyers. Uh, just, I think, wanted to understand what you captured in terms of how they were looking to prioritize their investments.
Sure, Chunky. So, so I'll break the entire set of insights into two sets. First is how are enterprises, or rather, where are enterprises willing to put their money in terms of modules? Like, what is the priority that enterprises have? And second is how are enterprises internalizing the advent of, or rather, the availability of these tools? How are they assessing the internal functions, how ready these functions are, and which functions they are putting forth in terms of adoption? So looking at the first set, in terms of relative priority across the three engagement layer modules that we just discussed, engagement channel optimization is something that majority of enterprises they are going after. Now this is followed by content management, and surprisingly, learning and training is not a very far third. It has been rated just marginally lower than content management. Now this further solidifies the trend that we are observing again. That is the need for a true omnichannel engagement or a true omnichannel experience. Enterprises, they are still trying to solve this puzzle. How do I reach to the right customer at the right time via the right channel? And if all of these three blocks are fit well, then they look at how do they do it with the right and personalized content as well. And so this is the story on the modules. Channel optimization followed by content and closely followed by learning and training module or the tools. And when it comes to the adoption of these tools across the entire commercial function, enterprises, they need to assess the digital readiness of these functions. And this is where all the enterprises, unequivocally, they were choosing sales and marketing as the first set of functions to benefit from the next gen customer engagement tools and platforms. And this is where they feel the maximum value for their buck lies. However, a key observation from this assessment and also from a lot of market chatter and interaction in the last 6 months is that a dark horse in this race could be medical affairs function. Although in the slide that it was just up, market affairs was ranked as the fourth in terms of digital maturity, or in terms of priority ranking for these tools and platforms. But we are witnessing a lot of activity, a lot of noise around this space, and we expect even the bugs to follow in the next 12 to 18 months, if not sooner. And historically, medical affairs, it has been a big laggard in terms of going after digital transformations or investing in these next gen tools. But with the pandemic, the role of MSLs, it evolved a great deal. Now they are expected to have much higher face time with customer and even in the market. So as such, enterprises, they are big time considering providing more digital armory to this function as well in the near future.
Thanks, Rohit. And we have two complimentary offers as well, right, for our audience. The first one is if you work at a pharma or a medical devices company, the insights that Rohit was talking about were from our 2023 customer engagement platform peak critics assessment. So if you work at a pharma or a medical device company, you can sign up for getting a complimentary abstract for that. Rohit, and when can audience expect a rerun of this assessment?
Thanks, Changi, for bringing that up. We have already launched the next iteration of this assessment a couple of weeks back, and I think that the team is fully geared to do the second iteration and see how the ever evolving market has further evolved in 10 months' time. And this report will be out sometime in Q3. And this time, while the overall scope remains similar, but we see and we expect a lot more players to be featured on this assessment. And in addition to the already existing next gen functionalities, there will be a lot more focus on Gen AI. There will be a lot more focus on beyond sales and marketing. Is it medical affairs? How is patient services gearing up? So all those aspects we'll be uncovering, and we're hoping to speak to a lot more providers. We are looking forward to speak to a lot more customers and bringing out a lot more insights this time.
Thanks, Rohit. And the second complimentary offer is if you're a product and platform provider, and if you feel that you are someone who's offering next gen customer engagement platforms or functionalities, and if you want to participate in the 2024 assessment, do reach out to us. There would be a link in the chat that you can click below to request that. So I think quickly moving on to Gen AI. So I know that this is a topic of interest for many. I think there was already a comment or a question on it as well. But let me just again start by giving an overview of some of the work that we are doing, and then I think we'll also hear from Durga and Rohit on their perspectives, and then we'll also address some of the questions as well. So over the last few months, as a firm, we've been doing a lot of research on Gen AI in life sciences and on other industries as well. We are also working with a panel of more than 50 CIOs, where what we are trying to do is trying to understand from them what are their priorities, what are their challenges. And there are a few things that there are a few insights that are coming from that entire exercise. And by the way, that panel of CIOs that I mentioned is across industries, and life sciences is one of the industries which some of those CIOs are from. So I think the first finding is that 2023 was largely a year of POCs, right, where everyone wanted to find out where can Gen AI be used. We saw a lot of proof of concepts. Uh, we yeah so But I think the sense that we are getting from a lot of CIOs is that there's a lot of POC or pilot fatigue, and that they believe that around 85 to 90% of those pilots will not move to production. So I think that was one of the main learning, right? That while there are a lot of pilots going on for multiple reasons, right? Whether there are other technologies available, so you don't need Gen AI for certain use cases. Uh, Cost is also a big angle. I think in the early to mid of last year, I think there was an under appreciation in terms of what would be the cost involved for moving some of those use cases in production, right? So that's another factor. And I think the third is talent, right? There are a lot of use cases that there's not enough talent to implement or to implement all of those use cases. So for these reasons and a few other reasons, we or that panel believe that more than 85-90% of the use cases will not see the light of the day. But I think the good news is that even as we are entering 2024, every organization across every industry is still looking at how they can use Gen AI. And we'll share some perspectives on it as well. We've had a lot of discussions on this internally. And Rohit, I know that you're very optimistic about Gen AI. You've been leading a lot of our research, not just in commercial, but across life sciences on Gen AI. So again, talk to the audience about why you are so optimistic and what makes you optimistic.
So Chunky, well, they say in technology, optimism is the fuel that powers progress. So while I understand, that, enterprises, they might want solutions of tomorrow to be built yesterday, and I, by no stretch of imagination, call that optimism. But what I call optimism is, looking how every stakeholder involved, be it technology providers, be it service providers, or be it even hardware vendors, how they are building remarkable solutions, and not only building, they are improving those solutions multifold very frequently. Again, optimism is me observing every other day going into a new demo that the results are better. They are much better as compared to even 3 months back. And I do take it with a pinch of salt that majority of these use cases, the naysayers might call it low complexity or low hanging fruits. They might call it this is intelligent AI, this is not Gen AI. Nevertheless, this is getting everyone to talk about it. And lastly, optimism is observing that at least half of the top 20 pharma, they have already moved at least one Gen AI use case from the POC or from the pilot fatigue stage out into the enterprise-wide adoption levels. So this is where I rest my case. So as an optimist, I am fully backing Gen AI to keep making these waves in the industry. And I'm all ears for the not so optimist side of the house to bring these pointers down.
So I think that was a slight dig at Durga, right? So Durga, I know that you're cautious, but I think internally you are labeled as a pessimist, right? So I think this is an opportunity for you to clarify your stance and why you believe in that.
So I think firstly, I'd definitely like to clarify that I'm not a pessimist about Gen AI. I don't think I should be making such statements when there's a lot of dollars being poured into it. I'll just say that I'm cautious, right? While I'd like to be optimistic, given the industry that we are in, I think we always tread things with some bit of caution. So, and definitely by the potential of generative AI, I think it's one of the technologies where one can truly visualize or rather see the impact, right? So it's not a question about the potential of generative AI, but I also believe I think life science enterprises are actually very much, while they're very much open to hearing about the potential of Gen AI and how they should be thinking about it, they are even more open to hear about how can the ecosystem help solve for some of the challenges that one needs to face to truly unlock the potential of generative AI, right? Now, the one overarching theme that I'd like to use when I cite these challenges is the regulated nature of this industry. Now, that regulation can be around compliance requirements, could be around data security, but essentially the industry we're in, we were just discussing, right? Our industry waits for someone to make a decision and then hop on that. They probably not the very first in terms of making a decision without precedence, right? So um, so I would like to say that I'm not not a pessimist, just a cautious optimist. So given the nature of the industry that we are in.
Yeah, and I know that we've discussed this before, right? So what you're trying to say is that while there is potential, there's a lot of challenges. that pharma organizations need to address, particularly around data security, data privacy. And in some of the conversations that we had, I think there are different, I would say, different levels of maturity in terms of understanding those challenges. Uh, or maybe I would correct myself. I think there's an understanding and acknowledgement of the challenges, but I think in a lot of conversations, there's maybe not as much maturity in how to tackle some of those challenges, right? So I think how quickly these enterprises can work with some of the partners to tackle some of these challenges, I think that will determine how we can move from potential to value, right? Because that is what CIOs want to see. I think everyone understands, uh, even if you are a little bit cautious, I think everyone understands that there is a lot of potential that GenAI has. I think the question that we have to answer and that enterprises need to figure out is how they move from potential to value, and how fast can they move to value, and at what cost can they move to value, so that they start realizing some of those benefits. Let's, I think, go back to that question on Gen AI. So there's a question which asks, where have you seen the best use cases for AI Gen AI within customer engagement platform that's live today? And do you see any promising developments, use cases coming up in the CRM CX platform? So from a platform perspective, Durga and Rohit, what sort of use cases are you already seeing incorporated as a part of the products or platforms?
So one use case which is, common across all the existing platforms, all the emerging platforms, is around conversation intelligence. There are a lot of startups who are doing only this. And even before, people were on Gen AI or ChatGPT high, this was the use case that we were tracking very closely. And now with, the publicly available tools such as ChatGPT, etc., there's a lot more acceleration in terms of embedding conversation intelligence in the platforms. And earlier there were a lot of issues regarding the responses being very robot like, but in the very recent demos that I've been part of, like I was telling before, the responses are starting to look like very targeted and accompanied with very relevant next best action. So conversation intelligence, definitely a mature theme and a use case that now is coming embedded in the CRM slash CEP platforms that at least I'm seeing. Other set of use cases are on the content side. Durga, would you want to add details there? So we featured few of the content only players in the assessment as well, while they were still experimenting internally. I think when we do the assessment this time, we'll get to know where those use cases are, with content generation, generating micro content bytes, and then analytics on top of that.
Yeah, I think absolutely the use case that is closely following the conversation intelligence bit is content, both from a marketing and also medical affairs standpoint. And Rohit alluded to this earlier, how the role of medical affairs is evolving. They're serving as a strategic pillar of sorts, bridging both clinical and commercial teams. So I think we are seeing some interesting use cases on the content side, because again, no one wants blanket content for all customers. Everyone wants it personalized. So how do you create more bite-sized, more personalized modular content basis the customer preferences? That's where again, some of this is we are seeing some interest. But again, being me cautious about it, I think it's content, so there's also a lot of question around compliance. But I think in pretty much every conversation, whenever there's a question around compliance, there is this is already thought of, right? So earlier, I think compliance security was almost like an afterthought. but now it's no more the case, right? It's sitting at the center of things. It's almost serving as the central block around which the entire tech is being built. So I think I'm glad to see that, and I believe that's the way forward as well for this industry.
Thank you, both of you. If there are any other questions or perspectives of GenAI, let us know on the chat. I think there are a couple of questions that we haven't addressed so far, so maybe we can pick them up. So the first one is from Shripad again. And the question is there any visibility on Viva solidifying their presence in the medtech medical device subsector? I think my quick perspectives are there is, I would say, some visibility, but not a lot. I think this is definitely a sector that they are trying to break into. And I think them moving away from Salesforce is a part of their strategy so that they can use their Vault CRM in medical devices as well. I think just because of the split, obviously a lot more focus is now on pharma. So I think that is probably why we are not hearing as many updates as we expected. But again, if you think about it from a Viva perspective, for them, the pharma market was already saturated. For them to continue to grow at the massive rate they were growing, they would have to come up with new or tap into new functions within pharma, again, which also they've done very well in quality, in regulatory, and now starting to do in clinical as well. But if you think about their growth trajectory, a lot of that is going to come from some of the adjacent industries to pharma. So I'm pretty sure this is high on their priority. But because of what we are seeing in the pharma CRM space, I think there's a lot more focus and a lot more communication focused on that. Durga, Rohit, anything additional that you would want to add?
No.
Okay. Then there's one more question from Aranya. Are you aware of any considerations for upcoming product platforms for consumer health companies? The short answer is yes. The 2023 report that we published will have more details. And Aranya, I think your organization has access to it. So have a look at that. If you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Would be happy to have a conversation and discuss this further. I think those were all the questions, and that was all that we wanted to talk about. If Yeah, I think that's it from all of us. So thanks a lot, Rohit. Thanks a lot, Durga, for the third iteration of this LinkedIn Live, and I look forward to having the fourth iteration of this with you towards the end of this year. And thank you for all of the audience. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for your engagement. Oh, I think just before we close, there's one more, so maybe we can take that. So there's one from Zuri Pradhan. Are there any scenarios at play where AI tech is being leveraged to reinvent the current MLR process to make it more lean and also future ready to accommodate increased content demand? Durga, Rohit, any one of you would like to take it up?
So again, we covered a few of the content focused providers in the report. So more details there, but in particular to the MLR process, all these providers, they have been a little skeptical to divulging details out, how they want to use AI or Gen AI, because this is the most critical part when it comes to compliance or regulations. So they don't want to either give out details even if they are doing something. And this is just my perspective, because I personally, this particular part of the content generation and dissemination, which is the MLR process, this is where I personally have seen the least amount of intervention as of today.
Thanks, Rohit. And I think with that, that's it from all of us. Thanks again, Rohit. Thanks again, Durga. And look forward to connecting with you on the fourth iteration. And thanks to all of the audience for your questions and engagement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.